The sun was setting over Millbrook on a warm Thursday evening in September, when neighbors first heard the screams coming from the Thompson house. But that was still weeks away. Today, the white two-story house at 247 Oak Street looked peaceful and perfect, just like it had for the past 20 years. David Thompson pulled his black Honda into the driveway at exactly 6:15, the same time he came home every day. He worked at Miller Insurance Company downtown, where everyone knew him as the guy who never missed a deadline. His boss, Mr. Peterson, always said David was the most reliable employee he had ever hired. Inside the house, Emma Thompson was setting the dinner table for 4 people. She had just gotten home from her job at Millbrook General Hospital, where she worked as a new nurse. The kitchen smelled like her mother's famous pot roast, the same meal they had every Thursday for as long as anyone could remember. "David's home," Emma called to her parents in the living room. Robert Thompson looked up from his newspaper and smiled. "Right on time, as always." Linda Thompson was folding clothes on the couch. "That boy could set his watch by dinner time," she laughed. The Thompson family had lived in Millbrook for over 30 years. Robert owned a small hardware store on Main Street, and Linda worked part-time at the local library. Everyone in town knew them as the family that had everything together. They went to church every Sunday morning, donated to every charity drive, and never missed a school event when David and Emma were growing up. David walked through the front door and loosened his tie. He was 28 years old, tall with brown hair that was always perfectly combed. His coworkers often joked that David looked like he stepped out of a magazine advertisement. He kept himself in good shape and wore expensive suits that made him look successful and important. "How was work today, honey?" Linda asked as David hung his jacket in the hall closet. "Good day, Mom. Sold 3 new policies and got a promotion meeting scheduled for next month." Emma appeared in the doorway, between the kitchen and living room. She was 24, with long blonde hair and bright blue eyes that people always complimented. She wore her hospital scrubs, light blue with little flowers printed on them. "Dinner's ready," she announced. The family gathered around the dining room table, the same table where they had eaten thousands of meals together. Robert said grace, thanking God for their food, their health, and their family. It was the same prayer he had said since David and Emma were small children. "So, Emma, how are things going at the hospital?" Robert asked as he passed the mashed potatoes. "Really good, Dad. The other nurses are helping me learn everything. It's a lot to remember, but I think I'm getting the hang of it." David reached across the table and patted Emma's hand. "I'm proud of you, sis. Not everyone can handle being a nurse. It takes a special person." Emma smiled but pulled her hand back quickly. "Thanks, David." Linda watched her children with the same proud expression she had worn since they were babies. "You two have always looked out for each other. Even when you were little, David would never let anyone pick on Emma at school. That's what big brothers are for," David said, cutting his meat. "Emma knows I'll always be there to protect her." After dinner, David helped Emma clear the dishes while their parents watched television in the living room. This was their routine. Emma would wash, David would dry, and they would talk about their day. To anyone watching through the kitchen window, they looked like the perfect brother and sister team. But if someone had looked closer, they might have noticed that Emma's hands shook slightly when David stood too close to her. They might have seen how she always found excuses to step away when he tried to help her reach something from a high shelf. They might have wondered why she never looked directly at him when they talked. The next morning, David was up at 6:30. Same as always. He made coffee for himself and orange juice for Emma, bringing it to her room and knocking gently on the door. "Emma, time to get up. I made you juice." "Thanks, David. Just leave it by the door, please. I'll get it in a minute. Come on, sis, open up. We can ride to work together today. I have to stop by the pharmacy first. I'll take my own car." David stood outside her door for a long moment before walking away. At work that day, he seemed distracted. His secretary, Mrs. Johnson, asked him twice if he was feeling okay. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Emma's supervisor noticed that the young nurse seemed tired and nervous. During their morning meeting, Emma dropped her clipboard and apologized 3 times for being clumsy. "Emma, is everything all right at home?" asked Dr. Martinez, the head of the nursing department. "Yes, everything's fine. Just getting used to the schedule, that's all." but everything was not fine, and it hadn't been fine for a very long time. That evening, the Thompson family attended the weekly church service at First Baptist, where they sat in the same pew they had occupied for 20 years. Pastor Williams always made sure to greet them personally after each service. "Robert, Linda, how are your wonderful children doing?" Pastor Williams asked as the family walked toward the church exit. "David got another promotion opportunity at work," Robert replied proudly. "And Emma is doing so well at the hospital," Linda added. "We're blessed to have such good kids." David put his arm around Emma's shoulders as they walked to their cars. "We're blessed to have each other," he said, squeezing just a little too tight. Emma nodded and smiled, but her eyes looked straight ahead at the parking lot. She had learned long ago that it was easier to smile and agree than to fight back. Fighting back only made things worse. As the Thompson family drove home that Sunday evening, the other church members watched them go and whispered about what a perfect family they were. The kind of family that made everyone else wish they could be just like them. Nobody knew that perfection was just another word for secrets, and some secrets were too terrible to ever tell. 3 weeks after starting her job at Millbrook General Hospital, Emma Thompson called in sick for the 4th time. Her supervisor, Janet Martinez, looked at the schedule with growing concern. Emma had been one of their most promising new nurses during training, but something was clearly wrong. "She sounded terrible on the phone," Janet told Dr. Foster during their morning meeting. "Like she had been crying all night." Emma was indeed crying that morning. She sat on her bedroom floor with her back against the locked door, holding her phone with shaking hands. She had lied about being sick because she could not face another day of pretending everything was normal. The bruises on her arms were finally starting to fade, but new ones would probably appear soon. David knocked on her door at 7:30, the same time he always brought her morning juice. "Emma, honey, I heard you called in sick. Let me take care of you." "I'm fine, David. Just need to rest today." "Come on, sis, open the door. I made your favorite breakfast." Emma pressed her hand over her mouth to stop herself from making any sound. She knew that voice. It was the same gentle, caring voice David used when their parents were nearby, but it was different when they were alone. "Emma, I know you can hear me. Don't make me worry about you." After 10 minutes of silence, David finally walked away. Emma heard his car start in the driveway and knew he was going to work. Only then did she unlock her bedroom door and go downstairs to the kitchen. At Miller Insurance Company, David sat at his desk reviewing policy applications, but his mind was somewhere else. His secretary noticed him checking his phone every few minutes and staring out the window toward the direction of their house. "Mr. Thompson, your 2 o'clock appointment is here," Mrs. Johnson announced. David looked up, confused. "What time is it?" 2:15, sir. The Hendersons are waiting in Conference Room B. David had completely lost track of time, something that never happened to him. He was known at the office for being extremely organized and punctual. His co-workers often joked that David could probably run the entire company if he wanted to. Meanwhile, Emma finally got dressed and decided to go for a walk around the neighborhood. She needed fresh air and space to think. As she walked past the Miller family's house, old Mrs. Miller waved from her garden. "Hello, dear. Feeling better today?" Emma stopped, confused. "I'm sorry, what do you mean?" "Your brother stopped by this morning around 8:30. He said you were very sick and asked if I had any of that soup recipe you liked when you were children. Such a thoughtful boy, always looking after his little sister." Emma felt her stomach drop. David had been checking on her, making sure she was really at home. He was always watching, always keeping track of her movements. "Yes, he takes good care of me," Emma managed to say before walking away quickly. That afternoon, Emma returned to find David's car already in the driveway. He was home early, which never happened unless something was wrong. She considered walking around the block a few more times, but she knew he had probably already seen her coming down the street. Inside the house, David was helping their mother prepare dinner. Linda was talking about her day at the library while David chopped vegetables, but his eyes kept moving to the front window. "There's Emma," he said when she appeared on the sidewalk. "Oh good, I was starting to worry. She looked so pale this morning," Linda replied. Emma walked through the front door and tried to act normal. "Hi, Mom. Hi, David. Feeling better, honey?" Linda asked, touching Emma's forehead to check for fever. "Much better, thanks." David looked at Emma carefully. "You still look tired. Maybe you should take another day off tomorrow." "No, I need to get back to work. My patients are counting on me." "Your health is more important than work, sis. You can't take care of others if you don't take care of yourself first." Emma nodded and went upstairs to her room. She could hear David and their mother continuing to talk in the kitchen, but she could not make out the words. 20 minutes later, David appeared at her door with a cup of tea. "I made this for you. It will help you sleep better." Emma took the cup, but did not drink from it. After David left, she poured the tea into the plant on her windowsill. She had learned not to eat or drink anything David gave her when they were alone. The next morning, Emma returned to work at the hospital. Her colleague, Nurse Patricia Wong, noticed that Emma seemed jumpy and distracted. "Everything okay, Emma? You seem nervous today." "Just tired still. I'll be fine." But Emma was not fine. During her lunch break, she sat in her car in the hospital parking lot and called her college roommate, Jessica, who lived 3 hours away in the city. "Jess, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Of course. What's going on?" "Do you remember my brother David from when he visited our dorm?" Jessica was quiet for a moment. "Yeah, I remember him. Why? Did you think there was anything strange about him?" "Emma, why are you asking this? Did something happen?" Emma could not find the words to explain. How could she tell anyone what David had been doing to her for years? How could she admit that her perfect family was built on lies and fear? "Never mind, I was just wondering. I have to go back to work." "Emma, wait. If you need to talk about something, I'm here. You know that, right?" But Emma had already hung up the phone. That evening, David surprised everyone by suggesting they go out for dinner as a family. They went to Romano's, the Italian restaurant where they celebrated all their special occasions. Robert and Linda were delighted to have both their children together for a nice meal. "This is wonderful," Linda said as they looked at their menus. "We should do this more often." "I agree," David said, reaching over to squeeze Emma's hand. "Family time is the most important thing." Emma felt David's grip tighten around her fingers, and she knew this dinner was not about family time. It was about control. It was about reminding her that no matter where she went or what she did, he would always be watching. As they drove home that night, Emma stared out the car window at the passing streetlights and wondered how much longer she could keep pretending that everything was perfect. Emma Thompson had been keeping a secret for 9 years. It started when she was 15 years old and David was 19, home from college for Christmas break. Their parents had gone to visit Aunt Margaret for the weekend, leaving the two siblings alone in the house for the first time. Emma remembered that night perfectly. She had been watching television in her pajamas when David came downstairs and sat beside her on the couch. At first, everything seemed normal. They were watching a comedy movie and sharing a bowl of popcorn, just like they had done hundreds of times before. But then David moved closer to her. Too close. His hand touched her leg, and when Emma tried to move away, he grabbed her wrist. "Don't be scared, Emma. I'm just showing you how much I love you." Emma tried to tell him to stop, but David covered her mouth with his other hand. He told her that this was normal, that all brothers and sisters did this, and that she should never tell anyone because people would not understand their special relationship. For 9 years, Emma had believed those lies. She thought she was the only person in the world dealing with this problem. She thought maybe David was right. Maybe this was her fault somehow. Maybe she had done something wrong to make him act this way. But now Emma was 24 years old, and she was starting to understand the truth. Working at the hospital had opened her eyes to many things. She had seen other women come into the emergency room with bruises and broken bones, whispering to the doctors about husbands and boyfriends who hurt them. Last week, Emma had attended a training session about recognizing signs of abuse in patients. The instructor, Dr. Rachel Foster, talked about different types of abuse and how it often happened within families. Emma sat in the back of the room, feeling like Dr. Foster was speaking directly to her. After the training session, Emma stayed behind to clean up the conference room. Dr. Foster was packing up her materials when she noticed Emma was still there. Did you have any questions about today's presentation, Emma? Emma wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but she could only manage one. Dr. Foster, what should someone do if the abuse is coming from a family member? Dr. Foster looked at Emma carefully. Are you asking for yourself or for a patient? Emma could not answer. She just stood there holding a stack of empty coffee cups, tears starting to fill her eyes. Emma, if you or someone you know needs help, there are people who can assist. You don't have to face this alone. Dr. Foster gave Emma a business card for the Millbrook Crisis Center and wrote her personal phone number on the back. Emma put the card in her pocket, but she was too scared to call right away. That night at home, David was in an unusually good mood. He helped their mother with dinner and told funny stories about customers at the insurance office. But Emma could see him watching her throughout the meal, checking to see if she was acting normal. After their parents went to bed, David knocked on Emma's door. Emma, I need to talk to you about something. Emma pretended to be asleep, but David opened the door anyway. He sat on the edge of her bed and put his hand on her shoulder. I know you were asking questions at work today. Mrs. Peterson from the hospital called Mom this afternoon. She said you seemed upset during some training session. Emma's heart started beating faster. David always found out about everything she did, no matter how careful she tried to be. I was just tired, David. It was a long day. Emma, you know how much I care about you. Everything I do is to protect you. But if you start telling people our private business, it could hurt our whole family. Do you understand? Emma nodded, but inside she was screaming. She was tired of being afraid. She was tired of pretending. She was tired of living in a house where she had to lock her bedroom door every night and still wake up terrified. The next day, Emma made a decision that would change everything. During her lunch break, she drove to the Millbrook police station and asked to speak with someone about filing a report. Detective Mike Rodriguez was working the day shift when Emma walked into his office. She was wearing her hospital scrubs and looked very nervous. I need to report a crime, but I don't know if anyone will believe me, Emma said. Detective Rodriguez had been working in Millbrook for 15 years. He had seen many people sit in that same chair, struggling to find the courage to speak about terrible things that had happened to them. Take your time, Emma. Tell me what's going on. Emma took a deep breath and began to talk. She told Detective Rodriguez about the 9 years of abuse, the threats, the control, and the fear. She explained how David had convinced her that it was normal, that it was her fault, that no one would believe her if she told. Detective Rodriguez listened carefully and took notes. He had investigated cases like this before, and he knew how difficult it was for victims to come forward, especially when the abuser was a family member. Emma, I want you to know that you did the right thing by coming here today. What David has been doing to you is not normal, and it is not your fault. For the first time in years, Emma felt like someone actually believed her. She cried in Detective Rodriguez's office for 20 minutes while he patiently waited and offered her tissues. What happens next? Emma asked. That depends on what you want to do. We can start an investigation, but I need you to understand that this will not be easy. Your family will find out, and David will probably deny everything. Emma nodded. She knew it would be hard, but she could not keep living the way she had been living. I want to file charges against him. I want this to stop. Detective Rodriguez scheduled Emma for a formal interview the following week and gave her information about counseling services and safe places to stay if she needed to leave home quickly. Emma drove back to work that afternoon. She felt scared but also relieved. For the first time in 9 years, she had told someone the truth about David. The terrible secret was finally starting to come out. David Thompson knew something was wrong the moment he saw Emma's face when she came home from work that Tuesday evening. She looked different somehow, like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. For 9 years, Emma had walked through their house like a scared rabbit, always looking over her shoulder and jumping at sudden noises. But tonight, she seemed almost calm. During dinner, Emma actually spoke up when their father asked about her day at the hospital. She told stories about her patients and laughed at Robert's jokes. She even made eye contact with David when he asked her to pass the salt, something she had not done in months. Linda was delighted to see her daughter acting more like her old self. "Emma, you seem so much happier lately. I think working at the hospital is really good for you." "Yes, I'm learning a lot about myself," Emma replied, glancing briefly at David. That night, David lay awake in bed trying to figure out what had changed. Emma was acting too confident, too relaxed. In his experience, Emma only acted this way when she thought she had found a way out of their situation. But there was no way out. David had made sure of that years ago. The next morning, David called in sick to work and drove to the hospital parking lot. He waited in his car until he saw Emma leave for her lunch break, then he followed her at a safe distance. Emma drove straight to the police station and went inside for almost an hour. David felt his chest tighten with panic. Emma was talking to the police. After all these years of keeping their secret safe, she was trying to destroy everything they had built together. When Emma came back to work, David drove home and went straight to his computer. He needed to think clearly and make a plan. Emma had forced his hand, and now he would have to take drastic action to protect himself and their family. David spent the afternoon researching on the internet. He looked up information about police, investigations, what happened when someone filed abuse reports, and how long it took for arrests to be made. He also searched for other things, darker things that he deleted from his browser history immediately after reading. That evening, David was unusually quiet during dinner. He kept watching Emma, studying her face and trying to read her thoughts. Emma seemed nervous again, probably realizing that David knew something was different. After their parents went to bed, David confronted Emma in the hallway outside her bedroom. "We need to talk, sis." "I'm tired, David. Can we talk tomorrow?" "No, we need to talk right now." David grabbed Emma's arm and pulled her into his bedroom, closing the door behind them. Emma tried to leave, but David blocked the doorway. "I know you went to the police station today, Emma. I followed you." Emma's face went pale, but she tried to stay calm. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. I saw you go inside for an hour." "What did you tell them?" Emma lifted her chin and looked David directly in the eyes for the first time in years. "I told them the truth about what you've been doing to me." David felt rage building up inside him. After everything he had done to protect Emma, to keep their family together, she was going to ruin it all. "Emma, you have no idea what you've just done. Do you think Mom and Dad will survive this kind of scandal? Do you think our family can handle having everyone in town know our business?" "Our business?" "David, you've been hurting me for 9 years. This is not our business, this is what you did to me." David started pacing around the room like a trapped animal. He had always been able to control Emma before, but something had changed. She was not backing down this time. "If you go through with this, Emma, it will destroy everything. My job, my reputation, our parents' standing in the community. Everyone we know will look at us differently." "Good," Emma said firmly. "Maybe they should know what kind of person you really are." David stopped pacing and stared at his sister. She was not the scared 15-year-old girl she had been when this started. She was a grown woman who had found her courage, and that made her dangerous to him. Over the next few days, David began making careful preparations. He took time off work, claiming he had the flu. He drove to hardware stores in nearby towns, paying cash for rope, plastic sheeting, and other supplies. He told the store clerks he was doing home renovation projects. David also started paying attention to Emma's schedule and routines. He noticed that she had scheduled time off work for the following Monday, probably to meet with the police again. He overheard her on the phone making plans to visit their cousin Mark in Seattle the following weekend. Emma was planning to run away. She was going to leave town and probably never come back. David realized he was running out of time to fix this situation. On Thursday evening, David suggested that the family should spend one last weekend together at their old lake house before winter weather made it too cold for trips. Their parents loved the idea, but Emma tried to make excuses. "I have to work this weekend, and I already made plans to visit Mark next weekend." "Come on, Emma," Linda pleaded. "We haven't been to the lake house all summer. It would be so nice to have one more family weekend before you get too busy with work. Please, sis, David added. It might be our last chance to spend time together as a family for a while. Emma looked uncomfortable, but their parents were so excited about the idea that she could not refuse without seeming selfish. Okay, but just for Saturday night, I need to be back Sunday evening. David smiled and hugged his sister. Perfect. It'll be just like old times. But David was not planning for it to be like old times. He was planning for it to be the last time Emma would ever have the chance to hurt their family again. That night, David made his final preparations. He packed supplies in his car and made sure his story was straight. By Monday morning, Emma would be gone, and David would be free to live his life without worrying about his secret being exposed. As Emma lay in bed that Thursday night, she felt nervous about the weekend trip, but also hopeful about her future. She had an appointment with Detective Rodriguez on Monday morning, and after that she would finally be free from David forever. Neither sibling slept well that night, both thinking about the weekend ahead and how it would change their lives forever. The Thompson family lake house sat on the shore of Miller's Lake, about 30 miles outside of Millbrook. Robert had built the small cabin himself 20 years ago, and it had been their favorite place for family vacations and weekend getaways. The house had 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen and a living room with large windows that looked out over the water. Saturday morning started peacefully. Robert and Linda spent time fishing from the old wooden dock, while David and Emma unpacked groceries and prepared lunch. To anyone watching from across the lake, they looked like the perfect family enjoying a beautiful autumn weekend. But Emma felt tense and nervous the entire day. She kept checking her phone and counting the hours until they could go home Sunday evening. David seemed unusually attentive, offering to help her with everything and suggesting they take walks together by the water. I want to spend some quality time with my sister, David told their parents. We don't get many chances to really talk anymore. Linda was touched by David's thoughtfulness. You two have always been so close. It makes me happy to see you looking out for each other. That afternoon, Emma tried to call Detective Rodriguez to confirm their Monday morning appointment, but there was no cell phone service at the lake house. She would have to wait until they got back to town to make contact. As evening approached, Robert built a fire in the fireplace while Linda cooked dinner. The family spent the evening playing board games and telling stories about their childhood memories at the lake house. Emma tried to act normal and enjoy the time with her parents, but she could feel David watching her constantly. Around 10 o'clock, Robert and Linda announced they were tired and ready for bed. They said goodnight to David and Emma, who were sitting by the fire, and went to the master bedroom. This is nice, just the 2 of us, David said when their parents' door closed. Emma stood up immediately. I'm tired too. I think I'll go to bed now. Wait, Emma. I want to talk to you about something important. Emma hesitated. She did not want to be alone with David, but she also did not want to wake up their parents by making noise. What do you want to talk about? David patted the couch beside him. Sit with me for a few minutes. We need to discuss your plans for Monday. Emma remained standing. What about Monday? I know you have an appointment with the police. I know you're planning to try to destroy our family. Emma felt her heart start beating faster. David, I just want this to stop. I want to be free to live my own life. And what about my life, Emma? What about Mom and Dad? Do you think they can handle having their son arrested? Do you think Dad's heart can take that kind of shock? Emma had worried about this exact thing for weeks. She loved her parents and did not want to hurt them, but she could not keep living in fear. I'm sorry, David, but I can't protect you anymore. What you did to me was wrong, and I need to tell the truth. David stood up and moved closer to Emma. You're not thinking clearly, sis. You're upset and confused. Let me help you work through this. No, David. Stay away from me. Emma tried to walk toward the bedroom, but David grabbed her arm. She pulled away and headed for the front door instead. Where are you going, Emma? I need some air. I'm going to walk by the lake. David followed Emma outside into the cool October night. The moon was almost full, casting silver light across the water. Emma walked quickly toward the dock, hoping the distance from the house would help her think more clearly. Emma, wait. We need to finish this conversation. Emma turned around to face her brother. There's nothing left to talk about, David. On Monday morning, I'm telling Detective Rodriguez everything. I'm filing charges against you. No, you're not. David's voice sounded different now, colder and more threatening than Emma had ever heard it before. She realized they were alone by the dark water, far from any neighbors who might hear if she called for help. I'm going back to the house, Emma said, trying to walk around David, but David blocked her path. You're not going anywhere, Emma. I can't let you ruin everything we've built together. Emma tried to run, but David was faster and stronger. He caught her by the shoulders and they struggled at the edge of the dock. Emma screamed for help, but the sound echoed across the empty lake with no one to hear it. Stop fighting me, Emma. You're just making this harder for yourself. Let me go, David, please, just let me go. David pushed Emma toward the water and she grabbed onto the dock railing to keep from falling. They fought for several minutes, David trying to push her into the lake while Emma fought desperately to get away from him. You can't do this, David. Mom and Dad will know something happened. They'll think you had an accident. You always were a poor swimmer. Emma realized with horror that David had been planning this. He had brought the family to the lake house specifically to hurt her. This was not a moment of anger or panic. This was murder. Emma managed to break free and run back toward the house, but David tackled her on the rocky shore about 50 feet from the dock. They rolled down the small hill toward the water, both of them getting scraped and bruised on the stones. David, stop. Think about what you're doing. I'm your sister. You stopped being my sister the moment you decided to betray me. David was sitting on top of Emma now, holding her down with his hands around her throat. Emma clawed at his face and arms, leaving deep scratches that would later become important evidence. I loved you, Emma. I protected you. I gave you everything. Emma could barely breathe, but she managed to whisper, You never loved me, David. You just wanted to control me. Those were the last words Emma Thompson ever spoke. David held Emma underwater in the shallow part of the lake until she stopped moving. Then he carried her body to the deeper water near the dock and let it sink. He cleaned up the area where they had fought and went back to the house to wash the scratches on his face and arms. By the time David went to bed that night, he had convinced himself that Emma's death was really an accident. She had forced him to defend himself and their family's reputation. Everything that happened was her fault, not his. The next morning, David woke up early and called the police to report that his sister was missing. David Thompson called 911 at 7:30 on Sunday morning, exactly 12 hours after he had killed his sister Emma. His voice sounded panicked and desperate when he spoke to the emergency operator. My sister is missing. I think something terrible has happened to her. Detective Mike Rodriguez was one of the first officers to arrive at the lake house. He found Robert and Linda Thompson sitting on the front porch in shock, while David paced back and forth explaining what he claimed had happened. Emma said she couldn't sleep and wanted to take a walk by the water, David told the detective. That was around midnight. When I woke up this morning, her bed hadn't been slept in. Detective Rodriguez had been expecting to see Emma Thompson in his office on Monday morning to file formal charges against David. Now she was missing, and David was the last person who had seen her alive. The detective's instincts told him this was not a coincidence. David, I need you to walk me through everything that happened last night, step by step. David's story seemed rehearsed and too perfect. He claimed Emma had been acting strangely all weekend, talking about wanting to leave town and start a new life somewhere else. He said she had seemed depressed and might have hurt herself. But Detective Rodriguez noticed several things that did not match David's story. There were fresh scratches on David's face and arms that looked like fingernail marks. David claimed he had gotten them while searching through bushes for Emma that morning, but the wounds looked too fresh and too deep. The detective also noticed that David seemed more concerned about how Emma's disappearance would affect the family's reputation than about actually finding his sister. This is going to destroy my parents, David kept saying. The stress might kill my father. By Sunday afternoon, search teams were combing the area around Miller's Lake. Divers searched the water while volunteers walked through the woods calling Emma's name. Local news reporters arrived and began interviewing family friends about the missing nurse. On Monday morning, Detective Rodriguez received a phone call that changed everything. Dr. Rachel Foster from the Crisis Center called to report that Emma Thompson had been scheduled for a counseling session that day but had never arrived. Emma contacted me last week about getting help for abuse she was suffering at home, Dr. Foster told the detective. She was very scared but determined to get away from her abuser. When Detective Rodriguez asked who the abuser was, Dr. Foster's answer confirmed his suspicions. She said it was her brother David. She had been planning to file charges against him. Armed with this new information, Detective Rodriguez obtained a search warrant for David's car and bedroom. What they found provided crucial evidence for the case. In David's car trunk, police discovered rope, plastic sheeting, and cleaning supplies that David could not explain. His computer search history showed that he had been researching information about drowning, staged accidents, and how long it took for bodies to decompose underwater. Most damaging of all, police found Emma's diary hidden under David's mattress. In the diary, Emma had written detailed accounts of years of sexual abuse, threats, and psychological manipulation. The final entry, dated just 3 days before her death, read, "I finally found the courage to tell someone. Detective Rodriguez believes me. I'm going to be free." On Tuesday evening, police divers found Emma's body in the deep water near the dock. The medical examiner, Dr. Patricia Gray, determined that Emma had drowned, but the positioning of the body and evidence of a struggle showed that her death was not accidental. "There are defensive wounds on the victim's hands and arms," Dr. Gray explained to the detective. "She fought hard against her attacker. There is also tissue under her fingernails that matches the scratches on David Thompson's face." David was arrested Wednesday morning at his office. His co-workers watched in shock as police led him away in handcuffs. Mrs. Johnson, his secretary, told reporters that David had seemed nervous and distracted all week. The trial began 4 months later and lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence of David's guilt, including the diary, the computer searches, the physical evidence, and testimony from Dr. Foster about Emma's plans to report the abuse. David's defense attorney tried to argue that Emma's death was accidental, that she had committed suicide because she was ashamed of having a sexual relationship with her brother. But the evidence clearly showed that Emma had been murdered while trying to escape years of abuse. The most powerful moment of the trial came when Detective Rodriguez read Emma's diary entries aloud in court. Many people in the courtroom cried as they heard Emma's own words describing the fear and pain she had lived with for 9 years. Robert and Linda Thompson sat in the front row every day, looking older and more broken with each piece of evidence. They had lost both their children, one to murder and one to prison. The perfect family they thought they had was revealed to be built on lies and violence. David was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As the judge read the sentence, David showed no emotion. Even then, he seemed more concerned about himself than about the sister he had killed. After the trial, Robert and Linda Thompson sold their house and moved to another state to live near Linda's sister. They divorced 2 years later, both unable to cope with the shame and grief of what their son had done. The hospital where Emma worked established a scholarship in her name for nursing students who showed courage in helping abuse victims. Dr. Foster used Emma's story, with the family's permission, to train other healthcare workers about recognizing signs of domestic violence. Detective Rodriguez kept Emma's diary in his desk drawer and often reread it when he worked on other abuse cases. Emma's courage in speaking out, even though it cost her life, inspired him to be more vigilant in protecting other victims. 5 years after Emma's death, David Thompson remains in maximum security prison. He has never admitted his guilt or shown remorse for his actions. In interviews with prison counselors, he continues to blame Emma for destroying their family by reporting the abuse. Emma Thompson was 24 years old when she died. She is buried in Millbrook Cemetery under a headstone that reads, "Beloved daughter and sister, she found her voice." Every year on the anniversary of her death, flowers appear on her grave left by former co-workers, patients' families, and others whose lives she touched during her brief career as a nurse. The Thompson family lake house remains empty and abandoned. Local residents say they sometimes see lights in the windows at night, though the electricity was turned off years ago. Whether Those lights are real or imaginary. They serve as a reminder that some secrets are too terrible to stay buried forever.